If you want to take your therapy skills to the next level, I'd like to invite you to my next webinar, which is on the subject of anchoring. And it's going to be a masterclass on anchoring. And you might think, well, what's so great about anchoring? Well, to me, it's the single most important skill that you can learn as a therapist, because it's the heart of everything. And you might think, well, why is that? Well, the simple answer to that is 95% of every single problem that comes into your therapy room is going to be the result of anchoring. Unfortunately, it's going to be negative anchoring, but it's going to be the result of anchoring in some way, shape, or form, because every single problem falls under the equation of when X, client does Y. So there's an X in the environment that triggers the Y, i.e. the client's feeling and or behavior. And so when you find that out, creating change is really simple, because all you're doing is swapping one negative anchor for a positive anchor. And if they've got a positive anchor in place, they can do the new behavior. So think about it. Think about all the problems that come into your therapy room. They're all a result of some form of negative anchor. From the point of view of, say, that someone comes in and says, when I'm upset, I eat. When X, client does Y. Or when I see dog, I freak out. When X, client does Y. When I'm stressed, I reach for a cigarette. When X, client does Y. It's all the same underlying pattern. And when you get this and you understand that it's negative anchors that are going off and firing off and causing this person to feel a certain way, then the solution is really, really simple. Is you take that X and attach to it a positive resource, and you condition that in so that when they go out into the environment, that X triggers off, but it triggers off a new state and they feel better. So anchoring is at the heart of everything you do, even from the point of view of people who've had traumatic childhoods. You know, they think, when I think of what happened to me as a kid, I feel bad. That's an anchor. So you don't necessarily need to go off on a trawl and archaeological dig. All you need to do is to change the response of when they think about their childhood, they feel resourceful instead. So anchoring is the heart of every single thing that we do. And when you understand that, then change work becomes simple. And one of the problems that happens is a lot of hypnotherapists, they go through a hypnotherapy class, and some of these hypnotherapy trainers add a little bit of NLP, and the therapist comes out thinking they know anchoring and thinking they know NLP, and yet what they're taught is typically some variation of when the client is nice and calm and relaxed in hypnosis, that they rub their thumb and forefinger together like that, and that's supposed to magically transfer that relaxed feeling into rubbing their thumb and forefinger together. That's not real anchoring. That really isn't. So if you've been taught that nonsense and then say, well, I tried anchoring, but anchoring doesn't work, well, it's because you were taught nonsense. So we're in this webinar, we're going to really go through and how you can use anchoring to really maximize your skills as a therapist. So here's just some of the things you're going to be learning on this course. You're going to be learning how to set powerful resource anchors. Now these are anchors that the client can build up in themselves and trigger them off when they need them, which is a really useful thing to do. And particularly if you work with sports people, this is a fantastic skill to teach them. You're going to learn probably, to me, the most simple and the most powerful change tool that you could ever have in your pocket. And that's a collapse anchors. This to me is the most important skill. It's the most powerful change work technique that you could ever have in your back pocket. If you don't know how to successfully do collapse anchors, or if you don't know how to do it over Zoom, then you need to sign up for this webinar. So collapse anchors. We're also going to look at stacking anchors. What is stacking anchors? Well, stacking anchors is where you take a series of powerful states and you stack them one on top of the other and up on another to create this super state that can literally overwhelm any negative state that the client may have had in the past. So this is a really important thing. And what we're going to do in the group, I'm actually going to run you through a process where you yourself can experience the power of stacking anchors. And you can use this technique either with your clients one-on-one or even with groups. So you can take this specific technique and you can use the power of stacking anchors with a group of 50, 60, 100, 1,000 people, doesn't matter, and have tremendous effect with it. So stacking anchors is really, really powerful. Then we're going to go up a level. And then we're going to look at conversational anchoring. Conversational anchoring is where it really starts to get fun. This is where it appears that you're just having a conversation with your client. There's no hypnosis, you're just having a chat. And at the end of the chat, they can't do their problem anymore. It's that simple. What if you could just literally talk to your client, have a little chat with them, elicit some strong resources conversationally without this thing like, can you remember a time when you felt confident? Can you remember a specific time? As you think about that time, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt. No, we don't want to do that. We want to elicit conversationally. And the person goes into this resourceful state and we anchor it covertly and then take them back to the trigger and it fires off automatically, collapses the negative state, and suddenly they just changed. And they think to themselves, well, hang on a minute. That's really weird because I can't access the negative feeling anymore, and yet we haven't done any hypnosis yet. Well, that's the promise of conversational anchoring. And then we're going to look at covert anchors. Now, covert anchors are happening all the time, whether you realize it or not. You're anchoring your clients all the time. And so it's a really good idea to know what it is you're doing. And we're going to go through some techniques that you can anchor covertly with your clients. So you don't have to touch them in a specific way. You can just use a specific gesture. You can anchor spatially. You can anchor with the tone of your voice. You can anchor all sorts of different ways. And then you can fire off those anchors at will. And that suddenly that person will just feel resourceful. Now, of course, once you've got this skill, this doesn't just apply to the therapy room. If you're working with your child or a friend who's going through a tough time, you don't have to say, okay, I'm going to have to put on my therapy hat now. You can just use some conversational stuff and help them feel better in an instant. So these are some of the things we're going to be learning. Now, if you've attended any of my previous webinars, you'll know that we get through a lot of material. You are going to be learning so much material in this short period of time. It's going to be about 2 hours long, depending on how fast I speak and how many questions I get, but it's aimed to be about 2 hours long. You're going to get all the materials that you need, the handouts with the specific techniques that we're going to look at, so that you can literally, the moment you leave the webinar, go to your next client and be able to use these skills with your next client. So if this is something that's really appeals to me, and certainly if you've been trained in just using a scripted approach, this is going to be revolutionary for you because you'll really understand what change work is. Because here's the thing, when you're using a script, it's not the suggestions in there, the words themselves that create any healing or change work. What it is the elicitation of states. So if you're just reading your script to your client in a monotone voice, pretty much you're doing nothing. That's not how change work happens. You've got to be using anchoring. So if you understand that, it's going to make everything you do so much more powerful. So if this is something you want to do, if you want to take your skills to the next level, then sign up now for this next webinar. It's going to be really fast paced. You're going to learn loads and loads of stuff. There's be plenty of time for questions. And if after the webinar you have any questions, you can always email me or message me on Facebook and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So you get all the backup. Now the thing is that the program will be recorded. So if you can't make it on the day, if you sign up beforehand, then you get the replay. So if this is something you want to do, if you want to take your skills to the next level, sign up now and I'll see you soon. This is going to be a really game changer for many of you. So I hope to see you soon.